Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Zoro has an unknown origin, and we know absolutely nothing about his parentage or even where he was born. But with the new events and revelations that are happening in the manga, it may be indicative of a possible flashback or even a larger revelation about the true origin of this character. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the possible origin of Zoro, what relationship he may have had with the swordsman Shimotsuki Ushimaru, and what connection Vegapunk may have with Zoro's true origin. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel or even if you've watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you'd leave us a like and even subscribe and maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out, especially with that old YouTube algorithm, and it continues to motivate us to make more content. If you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So my friends, the only thing we really know about Zoro's past is the events that made this character acquire an immense determination and a mission to become the greatest swordsman in the world. And it was during his childhood together with Kuina. In this flashback, we see memories that will haunt Zoro for the rest of his life. But it's not exactly Zoro's flashback that I want to talk about per se, but rather a family that appears in this flashback. As we know, Zoro's flashback takes place in Shimotsuki Village, a village that bears the name of a family of swordsmen belonging to Wano, the Shimotsuki family. In fact, during the Wano arc, we met some members of this family. We've met Shimotsuki Yasue, his daughter Toko, Ushimaru, and the blacksmith Kozaburo. Now the name might seem like a coincidence, but there is something that proves that this family and this village are linked. Kushiro, as well as Shimotsuki Ushimaru, carry a symbol on their clothes representing that these two characters are somehow related or belong to the same family. Now somehow, Zoro unexpectedly arrived in this village, having no parents or even relatives, being a complete stranger to everyone. However, Kushiro sheltered and trained Zoro with all of his knowledge. And this is something that Kushiro had not offered to anyone, not even his daughter Kuina, who was in fact a very skilled swordsman. Kushiro focused all of his efforts on Zoro, and even ended up giving him an extremely powerful sword that was created in Wano by a very skilled blacksmith. Kushiro even seemed to raise Zoro as if he was his son, hoping that the young man would become a great swordsman. Something quite strange coming from this character, adopting an unknown and originless child and then offering him pretty much the best treatment. This indicates that Zoro might be a member of this family, but maybe not simply a member of the family, but Shimotsuki Ushimaru himself, a daimyo of Ringo, a very important member of the family overall. But then of course, you're gonna ask and respond in the comments, how could Zoro be Ushimaru when they have such a huge difference in age and even follow totally different stories? And the answer might seem a bit confusing or even crazy, but Zoro could actually be a clone of Ushimaru. And with recent events going on in the manga, this is something that could actually be possible, because we know that Vegapunk was able to clone the pirate Stussy, in fact making a perfect clone of this pirate belonging to the Rock's pirate crew so many years ago. And Vegapunk didn't just create Stussy. Based on the most recent chapters of One Piece, it was shown that Vegapunk was also responsible for creating Edward Weevil, the supposed son of Edward Newgate, also known as Whitebeard, which opens the door that Zoro could be a clone or even Ushimaru's son. So while Vegapunk has made many clones in his lifetime, many of them might not have gotten the look and feel of their base, just as we see with Weevil, who's a little derpy looking compared to his father Whitebeard. Sure, he has similarities like Whitebeard, just as Zoro has with Ushimaru, but these characters are not exactly the same, but carry the same abilities and strengths as the people they were cloned from. It's possible that somehow Ushimaru might have met Vegapunk, enabling the scientists to get the DNA and replicate it into new creations. And in the midst of this process, Vegapunk may have created Zoro. And for some reason, Vegapunk might have even placed the small child in Kushiro's care, allowing Zoro to become a great swordsman, but with his own goals, not necessarily needing to follow Ushimaru's old desires. Now we do know that Ushimaru was an extremely skilled swordsman and was also a daimyo for an unknown period of time, ruling Ringo, until Kaido arrived in Wano and began to arrest and take the lives of those who went against his will. But before Kaido and Orochi started taking over the country of Wano, Vegapunk might have even visited the country to gain knowledge of their culture, learn more about these swordsmen. And it could have been during this time that Vegapunk met Ushimaru. They may have even become friends and made it possible for the scientists to obtain the cells of this incredible swordsman. So a few years after Vegapunk left Wano, taking place exactly 28 years after the current events of the manga, Ushimaru attended a daimyo meeting where Kazumi Higurashi posed as Kuzuki Sukiyaki and convinced the daimyo to support Kurozumi Orochi as a temporary shogun. 8 years later, after executing Kozuki Oda, who had been Kuri's daimyo, Orochi gave the 4 remaining daimyos a chance to submit to him, and all the daimyos refused and organized a rebellion against him. However, the rebellion was finally quashed by Kaido when Ushimaru and his fellow samurai Fuketsu Omtsubi and Uzuki Tempura ended up trapped in Onigashima not long after their rebellion ended. It was around this same time when Kaido had locked his son Yamato in a cave along with the other samurai prisoners for a month until they may have finally agreed to obey him. But Kaido left everyone food provisions, but he left enough for just one person, then gave them swords to fight for it. Now Yamato was extremely scared when he found himself in this situation and believed that the samurai would hate him due to his heritage. However, the samurai proceeded to immediately give the food, saying that he was not hungry, being very kind to this small child. Ushimaru then freed Yamato from his chains, saying that he had been friends with Odin and that everyone in the cave loved Kazuki Odin. And they started talking about him and telling Yamato all these stories about him. As they're sharing stories, a samurai who Yamato had been asking questions of asked to be called Nobody Important. So Yamato shows Ushimaru Odin's diary, but says that he's having trouble reading it, and everyone starts reading it together while Yamato marvels at Odin's tales. 10 years later, the samurai tells Yamato that at this rate, they may not get to see the battle that Odin predicted would happen in 20 years. Of course, referring to the battle that took place in the previous Wano arc. But on that same day, Yamato pledges that he will fight for Wano on that day. But the samurai decides to go out and fight Kaido right away to ensure that Yamato doesn't die in the caves as Kaido wants, and make sure that Yamato survives until that day 20 years in the future. And this is what eventually led to Ushimaru losing his life along with all the other samurai and daimyo. Now, objectively speaking, this character's past doesn't have much to do with Zoro. I mean, besides the fact that they're both great swordsmen. But what draws the most attention between these two characters, and may be an indication that this idea could be right, is the appearance of these two characters. Although Oda has said that Ushimaru is not Zoro's father, that doesn't necessarily rule out the possibility that the Straw Hat Swordsman could be a clone created by Vegapunk. Because during the anime, and even in the One Piece manga, we could see that Ushimaru has very striking similarities with Zoro. Ushimaru had dark blue hair that was spiky in the front, much like Zoro's, and then tied back in a large, thick top knot at the back. Now, 39 years ago, he wore dark-colored yukata with light-colored markings, and then a light-colored jitoku haori with dark-colored images of bulls over the top. On his back, he had a tattoo of two crossed cutlasses over a circular design, which is a symbol strongly associated with the Shimotsuki family. After being trapped by Kaido, he wore bandages around his head that covered his left eye. And again, he bore a striking resemblance to Roanoa Zoro, particularly in his youth. Now, not only are their appearances quite identical, but their personalities are as well. Like Zoro, Ushimaru is an honorable, selfless, and kind samurai. He was opposed to Orochi's takeover and remained steadfast in this even after being imprisoned by Kaido. His spirit had never been broken, even when Kaido tried to force his trapped samurai into a death for food game with his son Yamato. Ushimaru and the others didn't hesitate to refuse the food, and rather allowed Yamato to take it, never wavering from the samurai code. Ushimaru showed exceptional kindness towards Yamato, encouraging the little child's dream of becoming Odin, and never harbored resentment over his heritage as being Kaido's eldest son. Ultimately, Ushimaru's selflessness and unwillingness to give in to enemy pressure led him to exit the cave with the other samurai and mount a final suicidal stand against Kaido, purely for the sake of Yamato to survive until the final battle that Toki had prophesied. However, even while maintaining his decision to follow the samurai code, Ushimaru still considered himself a disgraced samurai after being defeated and imprisoned by Kaido, and so he meekly refused to share his name with Yamato. So as we can see, based on this information, Zoro and Ushimaru really do have some striking similarities, which might indicate that there is this possibility, leaving only Vegapunk to confirm our idea that Zoro really is a clone of Ushimaru. But with all that said, my friends, we'd now love to know what you think about it. There's been a lot of discussion around the community and many different videos put about the idea that Zoro could have been Ushimaru's son. But now that we have the confirmation that Stussy is a perfect clone of a former member of the Rock's Pirates, what do you think of this possibility? Could Zoro be a clone of Ushimaru? I mean, we know that Vegapunk traveled the world widely looking for different ideas and research and possibly even other raw materials. So it's entirely possible that he did in fact meet the samurai on Wano, and even further, got some of their DNA. But we'd love to know what you think about it in the comments below. So as we wrap up our video for the day, we'd like to thank you all so much for watching, especially those of you who've made it here to the very end. Be sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that red subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. Hope to see you all in our next video. Let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.